Korean food and other cuisines around the world. Welcome to our segment 맛대맛, Taste versus Taste with our one and only 셰프님 Matthew. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
반갑습니다.
Always great to be here.
Yes, always great to have you as well. What were you doing at 6 a.m. this morning?
I was actually going to bed.
Ah,
I was up all night working. Yeah, I had a... So for me, I had a deadline for 10 a.m. this morning. And for me, I would much always rather, stay up late and turn it in early rather than wake up early and work to the deadline.
Right.
Because that way, if I need those extra couple of hours, I have them. So yeah, I was actually, I went to bed around 7 a.m. today. And yeah, that was, it was hard to get sleep after that. I'll put it tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, so many people live different lives. 서울 안에서도, we call it a sleepless city. 그래서 어떤 분들은 이제 출근을 준비해서 이제 준비하려고 하시는 분들도 있겠지만, 또 밤늦게 일을 하시는 분, 그때쯤에 퇴근하시는 분, 아니면 잠잘 때쯤에 그 새벽 6시 문자를 받았을 건데.
That's right.
What a morning it was. It kind of shifts your entire day.
Right, and I'm sure that after that, hopefully people got a nice meal in to calm their nerves.
Right, and that's what soul food really is. And so hopefully we'll give you guys a good taste in your mouth as we talk about a particular food. That brings us to our question of the day.
That's right. Our question of the day is, so North America is the largest consumer of canned soup in the world. But which region is the smallest?
Interesting. 재밌네요. 북아메리카는 세계에서 가장 많은 통조림 스프를 소비하는 지역인데요. 그렇다면 가장 작은 시장은 과연 어디일까요?
That's right. So we're talking about 지역. We're not talking about a particular country. We're talking about like whole continental areas. We're talking about like Europe, Asia.
Okay.
If you want, you can chime in with a UMENA. If you
Where's
want.
UMENA?
It's Europe. Europe, Mediterranean, North Africa.
Okay.
Middle East, North Africa.
Oh,
Europe,
okay.
Middle East, North Africa.
All right. I'm going to say Europe just because wouldn't Europeans be a little just everything anti-American?
But the Europeans invented canned soup.
Oh, did they?
They invented canning in general. And also, this is also good to know. So we're talking specifically canned soup.
Right.
We're not talking about other types of instant soups like vacuum packed or freeze dried. We're talking specifically canned soup.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting because, I mean, it's not even canned beans either, right?
No.
Particularly canned soup.
Not canned stew, not canned broth. We're talking about specifically canned soup.
Well, that's very different. I mean, if we talk about broth, stock, and all that kind of stuff in comparison with soup. But maybe we'll get to that in just a bit. So today we're going to be focusing on breakfast.
That's right. We're going to be talking about breakfast. And one of the reasons why today's question is about soup is because I think soup might be the most common thing to eat for breakfast around the world.
I think so as well. Aside from America, where we eat candy and anything sugar, just put it in with milk and we're like, yeah, it's healthy.
Yeah, it's North America and Western Europe that basically does not eat soup for breakfast.
Okay. Yeah, but otherwise, I mean, even congee as well. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a soup, but I mean, it aligns with some sort of liquid mixed with rice or, noodles and things like that, which I am all for. I don't know about you, but I have a sensitive stomach, so I don't like to eat quite heavy or certain things actually give me a tummy ache every breakfast.
I'm the same way.
진짜요?
Actually, it's one of the reasons why 저는 원래 아침에 굶어요.
저도요.
So I don't usually eat breakfast because my stomach is just not ready. It needs a couple hours to wake up.
Same. 그런데 약간 죽 같은 거 먹으면 or 간단한 국 요리를 먹으면 그때는 괜찮아요.
맞아요. And I think this dish might be my favorite breakfast that's
Me
not
too.
from my own culture, and that is Vietnamese pho. 쌀국수.
쌀국수.
베트남 쌀국수.
너무 맛있죠.
최고죠.
It is so good. I am a Yangji fan. I'm all about the brisket.
Yep.
We could do the chadolbegi, but it's not really necessary. It's just the extra price, and it doesn't really add.
I think with yangji, I think the leanness of it, I think it adds a great texture.
It does.
It's chewier than chador or some of the other parts, and I think it adds like a great counterpoint.
Yes, I gotta have my sukju in there. I gotta have the onions. I am a gosu wangpan.
That's right. I asked for extra gosu.
Yes, and I will 뿌려 a little lemon dip or lime dip.
Yep, absolutely. You need all that in there. Have you been to Vietnam?
I have. I went a few years ago to, I think, Hanoi, and I was so pleasantly surprised how delicious the food was.
Doesn't it feel great to walk down the street and see so many places selling soup for breakfast?
맞아요. Yeah, I think there's something about certain Asian countries where the 아침 문화 is so strong.
Right, because 우리나라는 like it's common to have like 국밥 or different types of
그쵸.
soups for breakfast, but it's not quite like you find in Southeast Asia where you have rows and rows of restaurants busy from first thing in the morning. 조금 다른 문화죠. Like
그렇죠.
we normally eat at home. Sometimes people will eat at the office, at work. But there's so many centers in which people are just bustling and all go to grab a bite to eat first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And there's that energy there and
There
all
is.
of the variety, right? 코앞에 있는 그런 종류가 너무 많잖아요.
Yeah, it's the stalls that, come to life. It's like, if you compare it to America, it's the cafes, the coffee stands.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but then if you go to Southeast Asia, it's these noodle stands that are popping.
And not just the flavor. I think just the basic composition of this makes it such a perfect breakfast. And I think if we look at this, we can start to understand other breakfasts
Okay.
well.
All right.
I think the things that are important about it is that, of course, there's carbs, 탄수화물, there's protein, there's 단백질. But the biggest part, the most important factor about it, I think, is the water. Because 수분기, I think to be able to get something that's hydrating first thing in the morning is
And nourishing.
Yeah, nourishing too, right? Because it's not just water; it's water that it's a broth, so
Right.
it's meat tea.
It's meat tea. 육차라고 해야 되나요? Well, let's take a look at pho because it seems like there's quite an interesting origin.
That's right. So the name pho itself is quite intriguing because Vietnam being a former colony of France, there's a lot about Vietnamese culture and cuisine that's influenced by the French.
Yeah.
Banh mi, for example.
Right.
French bread uses pâté on it, and so it's very French in that sense. The word pho itself there's a little bit of controversy as to where it comes from.
Okay.
Some
논란이
people will
있다면서.
say that it comes from the French dish called pot au feu. It literally means pot on fire. Feu meaning fire. And it's a country dish where you basically have this big, like almost like a 가마솥 over a fire, and it just bubbles all day long, and you just add things to it. It's almost like it's like a really slow hot pot. Almost.
Okay.
And then once everything, all the meat and all the vegetables are cooked, you just ladle out this broth, very similar to the kind of makeup of like a Vietnamese 쌀국수, in the sense that you have like this 맑은 육수 with like tender meat and vegetables in it. No noodles in this one, though.
But the Asians brought the spices.
The spices and the noodles. The noodles are actually are also an unusual part as well. However, some other historians and fans of the dish believe that it comes from a Chinese term.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
there is no one kind of consensus as to where it comes from.
Right.
But I think the urban legend, the myth, most people tend to say, oh, it comes from the French term.
Oh, okay.
One food historian argues that by saying this, it kind of reinforces this idea that the French brought some modern ingenuity to a traditionalist Vietnam. But either way, it's a delicious dish, and I think it's one of the best breakfasts in the world.
Yeah, I would say the same as well because, as we said, it's nourishing. You got that meat broth. You got the noodles for energy and the carbs. The vegetables as well. You got to have the mint too, just to give it a little fresh vibe. But otherwise, I can't imagine just having toast and cereal for breakfast anymore. You know, it's just, you get spoiled if you live in these countries. But in any case, taking a look further on to other, I guess, breakfast noodle soups.
There aren't that many. So I wrote this in the script, and you notice there's nothing else under there.
Right.
There are a wide variety of noodle soups that you'll have. In Southeast Asia? But none really outside of like as the farther you move away from Southeast Asia, the fewer not just breakfast noodle soups you find, but just noodle soups in general. Noodle soups are a very Asian thing, I've noticed.
Yes, that's right. Because, I mean, pasta, it's just a sauce on top.
There is tortellini al brodo. So it's tortellini, which are basically Italian mandu.
Okay.
And it's basically Italian mandukuk. It's tortellini in broth.
Okay.
And that is the only really well-known
it's not really
Italian, pasta soup dish.
Right.
Then you have things like chicken noodle soup.
Okay.
Yeah, but the noodles are very short and very unsatisfying.
And there's like 5. You know, I mean, where's the rest of the noodles? Well, in any case, we are talking about breakfast, in particular, soups for breakfast, so to say, here on the show. We'll leave you guys with the question once again. 북아메리카는 세계에서 가장 많은 통조림 스프를 소비하는 지역으로 또 유명할 수도 있죠. 그렇다면 가장 작은 시장은 과연 어디일까요?
That's right. North America is the largest consumer of canned soup in the world. Think Andy Warhol, the classic canned soup painting. But which region is the smallest market for canned soup in the world?
Let us know your guesses or your answers. 샵 1013, 담은 50원, 장문 100원입니다. 여러분, guess가 있다면 바로 보내주시길 바랍니다. Here's Sheena Easton, Morning Train. Morning Train, Sheena Easton. That's a good throwback there. It makes you want to go to Vietnam and eat the noodles there at like 6 a.m. because they're open, and that's the best feeling.
Although I just realized how old that song is because no one works 9 to 5 anymore. It's more like 8 to 7.
True. Or like 12 to 12, you know, who knows? In your case, it's like till 6 a.m. Well, in any case, talking about breakfast foods, soups in particular. Question being, 북아메리카에서는 세계에서 가장 많은 통조림 수프를 소비하는 지역인데요. 그렇다면 가장 작은 시장은 과연 어딜까요?
That's right. North America is the largest consumer of canned soup in the world. Which region is the smallest?
All right, well, let's take a look at alcohol, because that's what you have here. What is that?
So, I mean, I think when you start thinking about soup for breakfast, I think it almost goes hand in hand with the idea of alcohol, whether it's having alcohol with the soup during breakfast or having soup because you drank alcohol the night before.
그쵸.
Yeah, so I think there's the two motivations, and we're talking about having drank the night before as you know because of hangover. You know, there's the idea of was it 해장?
Right.
Yeah,
the hangover
soup.
Right.
What is it? And but I want to talk about actually having alcohol with your soup in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, do we do that here in Korea?
We do.
Do we?
So there's this 국밥 place. It's not super common. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's not like a cultural cornerstone.
Right.
But there are 국밥 places that will start serving soju first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And I know there's at least one place in Gwanghwamun. My wife used to go there for lunch. She never did this herself because, but they're famous and they're a pretty well-known place. And they're famous if you ask them for 냉수, they'll give you a cup of soju.
Oh.
That's like the kind of code word for having just like a little bit of soju for like as like 해장술.
Right, because you don't want to get caught. You don't want to be like 소주 한 잔요. 대신에 그냥 냉수 주세요라고 하면 알아서 이제 코드로 소주를 드리는 거예요.
Right. So for our listeners who don't know Korean, 냉수 it literally means cold water.
Right.
But you know the code word. So that's the code word, and it's not a shot. They put it in. It's like a paper cup full. So it's like what, like 2.5 shots.
That's pretty big.
It's pretty big, and I think like that's like the amount you need to kind of I guess like dust the cobwebs off. So yeah. So in Korea we call this 아침술 or 해장술, and in English we call that hair of the dog. You know?
Oh, do we?
Yeah. So it comes from the phrase. It's a hair of the dog that bit you. So the dog being alcohol.
I see.
Right? So that the alcohol has already bitten you.
Okay.
And so you just need to take a hair from it, a little bit more of it, just to make it feel better.
Interesting.
In Korea, we have another saying, 독에는 독으로 다스린다.
There you
so
go.
basically, you treat poison with poison, which again kind of has an English counterpart, fighting fire with fire.
Right. 술로 깬다. 뭐 그런 표현도 있는데요. I mean, that does remind me of like if you go to 삼계탕 집, they give you that little shot of 인삼술이라고.
Yeah, like a little 인삼주.
Yeah. So I guess it's not too uncommon if you think about it. You could just have it for breakfast.
Yeah,
But,
and it's pretty universal.
So you say?
Not extremely universal. Again, I think this was something that was much more common back in the day.
Okay.
When we were all agrarian societies.
Okay.
But there is one very strong cultural kind of tradition that's surrounded around having both soup and alcohol in the morning.
All right.
It's a dish called kash from Armenia, and I really, really want to try this. So basically, it's very similar to Korean 곰탕.
Oh,
맛있겠네요. It's also known as pacha. It's a traditional winter dish that consists of beef that's been simmered all night long.
There you go.
Served with lemon and garlic and vinegar, all these punchy flavors that are meant to wake you up. It's an extremely labor-intensive dish. So
정성 들어가는.
yeah, it's based off of beef trotters. So kind of like how 족발 is based off of pork trotters. So this comes from like the foot part of the cow. And so the hairs need to be plucked off one by one. It needs to be soaked and rinsed, very similar again to like 곰탕, the way you treat the bones and the beef for 곰탕. And again, unlike other beef stews, which are usually rich and browned, this is white and bayaga, like 곰탕. And so part of the reason why you have a drink with this is because it's very labor intensive. The person who's cooking it cooks it all night long. So you have a toast in the morning to say thank you to the chef who's made it for you. Also, it's a very common soup to have with a drink in the morning because it takes so much effort. It's often part of things like holidays and weddings. It is very much a special occasion soup.
A celebratory dish. Always got to toast, whoever made it because if it took you all night long, then man, they were up all night.
It's always vodka, never wine, never beer, nothing else. It's always vodka. What's interesting is that this is a very old dish. It dates to the 12th century.
Okay.
But it was only during the Soviet period where the vodka was introduced. But since then, it's become a cornerstone of the tradition.
Interesting. 그것도 맑아서, vodka도 맑아서.
That's true.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I think, it makes sense. Like for some reason, just like the vinegar and the lemon juice, I want something clean and sharp.
Right.
Along with like a very rich, beefy soup.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, talking about soups here on the show, one, I guess, particular kind in particular, canned soup. 북아메리카는 이제 세계에서 가장 많은 통조림 수프를 소비하는 지역이라고 유명할 수도 있죠. 그렇다면 가장 작은 시장은 과연 어디일까요?
That's right. North America is the largest consumer of canned soup in the world. Which region is the smallest? Do you have any guesses?
I want to, because I feel like you see a lot of canned, maybe Asia. They have a lot of canned, but do they have canned soups?
Do you see canned soups very often in Korea?
I guess not. There's no canned soups in Korea. They're just cans. Okay, I'm going to say Asia. 그럼
Okay.
아시아로 가겠습니다. 맞나요? Drumroll, please.
남미입니다. South America.
Oh.
By quite a lot, actually. So Asia, your guess, was the second smallest market.
Okay.
At 20% of the market. But South America is half of that.
남미는 수프를 아예 안 드시나요?
They do have their own soups, but not that many canned soups. Yeah.
남미 역시 약간 fresh한 거를 좋아해가지고.
That could be it, honestly.
Yeah, they just cook it on their own. Can't imagine, people down south in Latin America microwaving. Yeah, not like that. We're getting in a few guesses here. Oh, excuse me. 1231님께서는 North Korea, 북한을 guess했는데요. Makes sense.
Yeah, I one of those things. Well, technically correct is correct.
Yeah, it's a good guess. 1831님은 질문 보내주시는데 soup은 수읍이라고 발음해야 하나요? 습이라고 발음해야 하나요? 한국에서는 그냥 스프 라고 하시는데.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it doesn't matter really, but in English, I would just say soup. So 일단은 두 글자가 아닌 한 글자 soup. 수읍도 아니고 스읍도 아니고 그냥 숲이죠. Like
or
the
you can
forest.
like forest, or you can do sip like moisture.
That's true. 숲 속에 like the forest 아니면 굉장히 습하다 해서 숲. Well, in any case, it still is soup. Good to know that Latin America doesn't eat too much canned soup. We'll leave you guys with a quick song break. Here is the cast of La La Land, Another Day of Sun. Matthew here in the studio as we talk about breakfast all over the world. It really does differ. And we also talked about how our stomachs are a little bit sensitive. And so we don't like to eat too big of a breakfast.
Nope.
But then when I do travel, 이제 여행을 가면 이제 조식이 꽃이라는 분들도 계시잖아요. You gotta have that intercontinental breakfast, which I do enjoy. 그럴 때는 많이 먹을 수 있어요.
Sure.
왜 그럴까요? 여행 갈 때는 모든 게 소화가 다
I
잘
think so.
되고.
Yeah, you're walking more, and like I think
기분
think
탓?
you're 기분 탓. There you go. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's just the way you feel.
Yeah, we're talking about breakfast and specifically breakfast soups. Like we mentioned pho, we mentioned an Armenian dish, but there's also breakfast soups all over the world, from Africa to Mexico to to Eastern Europe.
Wow.
And honestly, it's not that Vietnam or Korea or any of these countries are unusual for eating soup for breakfast. It's the fact that North America and Western Europe, they've lost their way.
Yeah.
During medieval times, they used to all eat soup for breakfast, and now they don't anymore.
그러네요.
Yeah, so they need to find their way back.
They
to
really
the soup
do.
breakfast.
Yeah, because right now the cereal soup is not really.
So let me ask you this: milk and cereal, is it a broth, sauce, or beverage?
It's a beverage. It's a beverage. 그냥 우유가 beverage이잖아요.
맞아요.
시킬 수 있는 음료가 우유이기 때문에 우유에 뭐 어떤 거를 그냥 그래놀라이든 뭐 시리얼이든 다 먹을 수 있는 컵 안에 들어가면 it's a beverage.
그러면은, so to you then, the cereal itself is almost like a garnish. Like whipped cream on top of like an ice coffee.
Because you know what 미숫가루 is?
There you go.
It's cereal grounded up.
Yeah, it's deconstructed cereal.
Yes. It's the same thing. Funny enough, I love having miso for breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's because it's more of a soup.
There you go.
It's more, it's instant soup if you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess because it's cold, it's hard to say that it is a soup or even a beverage or whichever, because you have it with a bowl and a spoon. But talking about breakfast, and our question this time is about cereal.
That's right. One of the world's most popular cereal brands came out with a green onion flavored variety that went viral. Where did this happen?
기억나죠. 세계에서 가장 인기 있는 시리얼 브랜드 중 하나가 된 이제 파맛 제품을 출시하여 바이럴을 일으켰습니다. 이는 어느 곳에서 일어났을까요?
This was a pretty big one. Yeah.
But I don't remember. Was it in America or in Korea? Or I'm thinking because it was green, like pa, was it in Ireland? Just because of the color scheme? I'm not sure. Well, let us know if you guys have your own guesses. 여러분은 어디로 생각하시는지 샵 1013, 담은 50원, 장문 100원입니다. 많은 참여 부탁드리겠습니다.
And to everyone listening, you do not have to think nearly as hard as Punita did just now. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Well, if only breakfast was so simple. I guess in the States, we try to make it very simple, but in doing so, not so nutritional.
Not so nutritious. It loses a lot of its soul. I think you see a lot more sweet breakfasts in the West. And these sweet breakfasts kind of go hand in hand with also being faster and more convenient.
Sure, right.
So why are sweet breakfasts so common in the West? We definitely think of Americans as eating, like you said, candy for breakfast. But like on a case-by-case basis and like on a larger cultural scale, Europeans definitely eat a lot more sweets for breakfast. They're just higher quality.
그런가?
Yeah.
좀 더 고급적인 스위트를 먹어가지고.
They don't come out of a plastic bag.
That's right. I even 같은 초콜릿이어도 like I bet they're cacao beans of 70% dark and all that kind of stuff, and we start at a young age too. But I mean, chocolate in America, is it even chocolate? Who knows?
Carnauba wax. Yeah, and so we're not talking about things like toaster pastries. We're talking about real pastries.
Okay.
But why pastries for breakfast? It feels, they feel so sweet. Something like you should be having them for dessert. Part of it is timing.
Oh, okay.
So traditional French, especially in France, traditional French homemaking culture means that you're shopping for food every single day. And this is something that's still very strong in France to this day. And even when French families move abroad, they'll tend to still do 매일 아침에 장 보는 거예요. And part of this is buying a fresh loaf of bread every day.
Right.
They're not buying factory bread. They're buying bread that, because it comes from a real bakery, it goes stale at the end of the day. So you have to buy fresh. 우리나라에서 그 매일 밥 안 쳐놓는 것처럼 you don't, in Korea, like you don't make one pot of rice and leave it for a week.
Right.
You make fresh rice every single day.
Right.
Sometimes every single meal if you're having it, if you're eating at home every single meal. So because a traditional French homemaker would wake up every morning to buy bread that they would have with their meals, that's when they also pick up pastries for breakfast. And it's actually one of the reasons why, did you ever see that trend of the square croissant?
The square croissant? No.
This was like a really big like TikTok Instagram viral trend. It's a croissant in a loaf.
Okay.
식빵처럼 그 슬라이스를 할 수 있는 그 크로상인데 the baker who got the idea of this, he wanted croissants that you could put nicely in your bike basket to bring home to your family. Regular croissants, because of their shape, they get kind of bulky.
Sure.
He wanted something where you can just buy one loaf and split it with your family just by slicing it.
Is that not like the Danish bread?
It's basically what it is. It's essentially it's a rebranding. It's very clever rebranding.
Sure enough.
But also part of the reason why they have pastries for breakfast so commonly in Europe is cafe culture.
그렇죠.
The traditional European, especially French-style cafe. For those who eat breakfast out on the go, pastries are found at almost every cafe. Like we were talking about in Vietnam with all the noodle places. It's like that in Europe, but with cafes.
Yeah, and it's great to see. It's a different pace as well. People aren't like rushing. I think
right.
people are still taking their sweet time in the early morning, having an espresso. And 이것도 겨울에도 이래요. 겨울에도, 가을에도, 쌀쌀해도, 추워도 야외에서 먹는 것을 굉장히 좋아하더라고요.
Sure. I think a lot of is it the Germans? I want to say they like instead of turning up the heat, a lot of traditional German households will open the windows in the winter because they believe that getting that cold winter air is good for you. It's something that like you shouldn't be hiding away from. But getting that fresh air, that blast of fresh air is essential for maintaining good health.
그럼 면역력을 키우는 식으로.
그것도 있고, and also just the fresh air itself it's nourishing.
Sure.
Almost.
Yeah. I mean, 겨울바람이 이게 뭐라고 해야 되나요? It's like having seasonal fruit, right?
Yeah, it feels nice. It feels crisp. It feels fresh.
It's appropriate. It is what it is. Right. But I guess other European countries will also have breakfast pastry cultures as well for similar reasons.
Yeah, so non-pastry sweet breakfast around Europe. In Austria, you have a thing called Kaiserschmarrn.
Okay.
Kaiser meaning emperor, Schmarrn meaning mess. And it looks like a mess in the sense that it is, you take a pancake and you rip it up into small pieces. And then you toss it with nuts, raisins, apples, powdered sugar, jam. And it's called Kaiser Schmarm, the Emperor's Mess, because it is actually named after Kaiser Franz Joseph I. He was a fan of this dish.
Oh, really?
And so you'll find it all over the kind of former Austro-Hungarian Empire. In Netherlands, this is one that if you're on like food TikTok at all, you've definitely seen this one lately. I think it's still viral right now. It's like kind of at the tail end of the trend. Haarslag.
Haarslag.
So it's spelled hagelslag, but it's pronounced Haarslag. I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah,
I think I did that
impressed.
pretty well.
하글slag.
하글slag.
어떤 메뉴인가요, 이거는?
So it's essentially a slice of 식빵, white bread, with butter and chocolate sprinkles on top.
This is American.
It's
not
okay.
hagelslag.
This is the modern version. The traditional version, it feels a lot more European. So it's not chocolate sprinkles, but candied anise seeds.
Ew.
So you're not a fan of
No.
anisey flavors. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this right? The star anise? That anise?
So
anise?
it's related, but much smaller and like chewable. It's about the size of it's more the size of like a cumin seed or like a sesame seed.
Does it? Okay, so I'm not a fan of fennel seeds.
So it's basically a fennel seed.
No, not a fan. Oh no, the chocolate chips are much better.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why it's trending on TikTok.
Yeah, and part of the reason why is that I think a lot of people think of Europeans as being very sophisticated,
Right.
but then they all will also eat this for breakfast.
chocolate
Haarslag.
chips.
It comes from the word hailstorm, 우박폭풍. Because the original ones were white, so they looked like little pieces of hail on top of a piece of bread.
Interesting. Well, I mean, different cultures have their different ways of eating breakfast. Which one do you like more? Let us know. In any case, let's take a look at our question once again. 세계에서 가장 인기 있는 시리얼 브랜드 중 하나가 된 이제 파맛 제품을 출시하여 바이럴을 일으켰는데요. 이는 어느 곳에서 일어났을까요?
That's right. One of the world's most popular cereal brands came out with a green onion flavored variety that went viral. Where did this happen?
Let us know. Sharp 1013 for 51. Longer messages for 100. In the meantime, here's Casey. Good morning. Good morning and good evening. Wondering what you guys like to eat for breakfast. You know, we talked about breakfast quite a bit here on the show. I remember there was one episode where we talked about what not to eat on an empty stomach. And it was everything I ate on an empty stomach. Like, I love eating bananas on an empty stomach. And you're like, no, it's not good. Or even just milk by itself. And I'm
Right.
like, I do that when I'm in a hurry. Anyways, we're talking about one particular breakfast that has gone viral. 세계에서 가장 인기 있는 시리얼 브랜드 중 하나가 된 파맛 제품을 출시하여 바이럴을 일으켰는데요. 이는 어느 곳에서 일어났을까요?
That's right. One of the world's most popular cereal brands came out with a green onion flavored variety that went viral. Where did this happen?
Where, oh, where could this have happened? Talking about cereal a little bit more specifically.
Yeah, it might be like cereal might symbolize like modern life.
Yeah.
Like more than any other breakfast in
Yeah.
the world. Like it's very quick, convenient, cheap, and kind of soulless.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Also gaining popularity here in Korea.
It is actually so popular that there's this one, the chocolate sandwich cookie brand.
네네.
It's the black cookie with a white frosting in the center. There's a cereal version of that, right?
Oh, right.
That started in Korea. Even though it's an American company based off of an American cookie brand name, that started in Korea. And actually sparked a petition in the United States. Like, wait, why does Korea have that? Why don't we have that?
So does Korea have the rights to it, or I mean, like
No, so the company that makes it is an American company.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, one of the big three. There's the one that starts with a K. There's one that starts with a GM, and it's the one that starts with P.
okay,
Yeah. So they own the rights to it.
Okay.
But it's a
still,
global company. But that global company, that American company that's global, it's the Korean outpost. It's the Korean branch that came up with it. And it feels so American.
It does.
It does.
신기하네요.
Yeah, so it sparked like this furor. It's like, I'm so angry that we don't have
Yeah,
this.
we're
like,
jealous that we didn't think of
like,
it first.
Yeah, but they got it. but only after we did. It's kind of interesting. A lot of movies will open up in Korea before they open anywhere else too. So I wonder if this is almost something like that. Were we a test market?
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of cereals. You know, there are the super sweet ones, the ones that it's like, I'm sure it'll give your 5-year-old a heart attack, but let's keep feeding it. But there's also ones that are a little more healthier.
Yeah, I think
muesli.
Muesli is extremely healthy. It's basically unsweetened oats and various nuts and seeds and dried fruits.
It's hard to chew, I gotta be honest.
It is, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of people will soak their muesli overnight, and that way it becomes a lot easier to chew. But being hard to chew, I think, is considered a benefit for some people because it's the fiber. The fiber basically it helps keep your digestion going, and that's one thing I think most people are lacking more than anything else.
Sure.
Is fiber in their diet. But cereal itself, the word, if English isn't your first language, you might not realize that cereal isn't just the sweet breakfast. Cereal also refers to just grains in general.
Oh, okay.
In Korean, it also simply means 공유, like grains.
So that could be even oatmeal considered
Oatmeal,
cereal?
yeah. So like things like oats and rye and barley, if you look at it from an agricultural point of view, these are called cereal crops.
보리도.
Yeah, 보리.
It's true. 보리 과자 같은 경우에도 like friends always say 보리 과자 먹으면서 우유만 먹으면 그게 바로 시리얼이 아닌가.
Right, yeah. 누룽지탕. Like putting like a little bit of hot water over some 누룽지. Like,
sure.
Is that cereal?
Yeah.
I think so.
So is cereal only eaten with milk?
No, cereals can. If you kind of pull out and look at a really broad view, cereals are an incredibly wide range of things. Chuk is technically a type of cereal because it falls under the porridge category.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, real quick, let's run through a few of examples that we have around the world.
Yeah, so like there's oatmeal, like we mentioned. South Africa, there's a dish called putu. It's made with corn, and it kind of gives it like a grainy texture. It looks very much like a dry 콩비지.
Oh, okay. I could do. I like corn. Anything corn.
Yeah, and I love 콩비지, and so imagining the texture of 콩비지 with the flavor of corn sounds delicious.
I dig that.
Indonesia, there's papeda, which is a very unusual looking one. It almost looks like a pudding.
Oh, I'm okay with like rice pudding's good.
No, more like think like like chocolate pudding. The kind of glossy.
Oh, okay.
It's almost it kind of looks like paint or glue.
It's smooth.
Smooth. It's very smooth. It's very unusual. This is made from sago. And so we can kind of take a look at these. There's a general trend around the world in terms of the grains that they'll use for cereal. So the Americas, you have corn and wheat.
Cornflakes.
Corn being native to the Americas. And in Europe, you have a much wider variety of grains. You have rye and barley and oats.
Right.
The Scots are famous for their oatmeal and the use of oats, and corn as well. And then down in Africa, you have corn, and then you have like local grains like teff, and then you also have local kind of tubers like yams. And so that's kind of where the radius of corn ends. And corn seems to kind of follow this route of imperialism.
I guess so.
Because once you start moving to South Asia, you see a lot less corn and more semolina. And this is kind of where the rice starts.
Italy uses semolina as well?
Yeah, so Italy and Africa, couscous is made from semolina. Yeah, so Middle East and so basically from the Mediterranean to South Asia is kind of the semolina belt.
All right.
And then South Asia to East Asia, you have rice.
There you go.
And then in the Pacific, you have tuberous roots like taro and sago because it's hard to grow grains in tropical volcanic soil.
그런가요? Well, it's interesting stuff. Who knew that there were so many different types of cereal and all we know what to eat are the sugary ones? Well, in any case, 세계에서 가장 인기 있는 시리얼 브랜드 중 하나가 된 파맛 제품을 출시하여 바이럴시켰는데요. 이는 어느 곳에서 일어났을까요?
That's right. One of the world's most popular cereal brands came out with a green onion flavored variety that went viral. Where did this happen?
Drumroll, please.
한국이었습니다.
한국!
대한민국이었습니다.
Wow.
Yeah.
5646님, Green Onion Chex was here in Korea.
That's right.
Wow.
And it literally started as a joke. Do you know how this happened?
Yeah, I think you told me a long time ago.
Online poll. This is why you cannot let the internet decide anything.
4940님, 한국, 이거는 곰탕, 설렁탕에 타먹어야 할 듯이요. 라고 보내주시는데, 3112님, 매튜님, 라면에 넣는 봉지 양념은 왜 스프라고 하는 건가요?
Oh, that's easy because it is a soup. You think about like 우리나라에서 그 분말 수프 있잖아, 그 콘 수프 같은 거.
아하.
It's soup. By every definition, that packet is soup. Even though it's dehydrated, if you put into water, it turns into soup.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is a completely accurate term for the powdered stock base known as soup in Korea.
It's a soup mix, isn't it? Just
It
pour it
very
in
much
water.
is.
There you go. Well, in any case, thank you for your messages. Thank you for your requests and all that jazz. And of course, 매튜님 너무 즐겁고 재밌었습니다.
Always a pleasure.
We'll have to see you again next week. I'll leave you guys with our last song. Here is Wax, 아침식사 wedding song. Have a great evening and 여러분, 내일 봬요.